Today on Match Play.
I believe you've won more money than anybody in history as a PGA player for not having won a major. Did you know that?
Did not know that.
I believe that is still the
Thanks,
case.
Ray.
Well,
Match Play. Match Play. Match Play.
Kenny Perry, two-time Ryder Cup team member with a combined 15 PGA and Champions Tour victories. This dual tour superstar has earned more money than any player in PGA history without a major. But did you know his tour nickname is Biggie? Kenny Perry, welcome to Match Play. Thank you so much for being with me today.
Happy to be here, Ray, anytime.
You know, Kenny, there's a lot of guys out on tour that we've interviewed and we're going to interview, but I got to tell you, and I'm not just saying this to you because I could say it to anybody and I haven't, you're the number one guy when I first started doing this that I said I want Kenny Perry on my TV show. And I got to tell you why, Kenny. Your heart, your soul, and the way that you were when I met you for the very first time at Valhalla, at the Ryder Cup, when nobody saw you coming off the course and you were all finished and there were tears in your eyes, and I ran over there to the side of that building and started talking to you. You said, it's my swan song, and I saw the real Kenny Perry in that moment. Tell me about that moment.
Ray, it was by far the greatest accomplishment I've ever had in the golfing world, period. You know, you can take back all your individual accomplishments, but when you're in your home state, in front of your home fans, representing your country, wearing the red, white, and blue. I've got my dad there who's 88 years old. The man was in the Battle of the Bulge. You know, he's still living. You know, a lot of those men gave their lives for us, for our freedom. But here's a man he said he didn't take his boots off for 30 days. He was in a foxhole. The Germans were advancing upon him. And here he is. I've just closed out Henrik Stenson on the 16th hole to win 3 and 2. And my dad, if anybody knows my dad, he was a suit man his whole life, but once he retired from his job, he wears bib overalls every day, period. To church, anywhere, wherever he's going, that's what he wears. He's got a pocket right here, and it's got 5 cigars in it every day. Every day. He smoked cigars his whole life.
Man after my own heart there.
Exactly. And he came walking up on that 16th green. His arms were spread as big as he could get. He gave me the biggest hug. You know, he said, that is the greatest gift you could have ever have given me. And you know, I get a little emotional just even thinking about that. That moment in time was priceless. And it was just a week, you know, people in Kentucky remembered me for my 91 when I lost in the playoff there, the PGA Championship to Mark Brooks. I had a one-shot lead coming the last hole, made bogey, go in the playoff, lose the PGA Championship. And, you know, the Ryder Cup to me was a mulligan in life. It was a mulligan to me, giving back to me, a chance for me to go to show my people in Kentucky, my home folks, and it was probably the best week I've ever played, period. I made a ton of birdies. It was truly the most nervous I've ever been on the golf course. I had more feelings, more emotions. It was truly a fantastic week.
With all of the money that you've won, and all the players say the same thing, Kenny, about the Ryder Cup, tell me again, what is it? I mean, grown men cry. There's no paycheck. You're out there playing your guts out in front of the world, but it means more to you than winning anything or any amount of money. Talk about it.
Well, I was on 2 teams. I was on the team at Hal Sutton. We went to Detroit and we got killed. We were on the worst team ever. We got beat, I don't know how many, we lost by 10 or 11 points. That's how the separation was so bad. And I came out of there just depressed, miserable, just didn't know what had happened, and it just seemed like the Europeans just kept beating us, and they had us, you know. And to finally get in there, and we finally did it in Kentucky, to me was what made that week so special. But you know, all our guys, even the President's Cup, but the Ryder Cup is really out there. It's really for the guys that it really means a lot. There's so much history, there's so much tradition. So many great champions have played in that tournament, great men, great players, and it's been a battle. And you know, America won for the longest time. Now
Yeah.
Europe has kind of taken over, and now we're trying to gain a foothold back in it and get some, you know, get some superiority.
Why do you think it was a walk in the park for years? I mean, some players didn't even play in the Ryder Cup after playing in it a couple times because it was such a lay down easy win. But the Europeans have taken it over, and they've been killing us for all these years. Why?
You can look at the Sony rankings. You can look, you know, you look at the top 10 in the world, and you know, Europeans are up there. You know, you got a Luke Donald. You know, you got Lee Westwood, Sergio. You know, they are great players.
6 out of the 10 for the last long time in the world rankings have been non-Americans. But what about those Sony World Rankings? I mean, a Tiger plays in a tournament, the Chevron, he's way down the ladder, 50, 60, jumps up 30-some points, and he only beats 17 guys. And it's nothing against Tiger, but I'm talking about the rankings. Are the Sony World Rank, is there something wrong with that? When you jump 30 points for beating only 17 guys?
Maybe that tournament is a little skewed, but in general, the Sony rank is pretty close. You know, you've got to play consistently. You got to play against quality fields. It's pretty close. It's not a perfect system. I don't think anything would be very perfect about it, but I think it's pretty close. And the guys that are up there are always, you know, when you see them in a tournament, they're up usually in the top 10 of that tournament.
You've won, I believe you've won more money than anybody in history as a PGA player for not having won a major. Did you know that?
Did not know that.
I believe that is still the
Thanks,
case.
Ray.
Well, but I want to talk to you though, because you've had a couple of majors right there, and when you left Valhalla, you said, "I'm finished. This is my swan song." But then you woke up a few days later and you said, "Hey, I'm nowhere near finished with golf. I think I can win a few more golf tournaments," and more golf tournaments you did win. One of them was right here at the Waste Management Phoenix Open in 2009, and you won a couple tournaments that year.
Well, it's pretty ironic how my career has unfolded.
And now it's time to improve your game with Jim McLean, the best-selling author and swing guru to the professional tour's biggest stars. Here's Jim.
A little drill that you can use to understand how to load and stack your right side is done this way. I put this shaft just inside my right foot, perpendicular to the target line. And I've got my driver set up where the ball's off my left heel. So now I just pick the driver up and put it across my shoulders like this. You can just hold it like this. Now when I turn back, I'm going to turn this back until I feel like I've got the shaft right over top of the club inside my right foot. But stay in your posture and do this little drill. That will give you a great feeling of loading up like a top touring professional.
I wanted to get into golf from the time I was a young kid. I knew there was this great game out there that I loved to play. I really didn't know what the possibilities were, and the Golf Academy of America opened my eyes to all these different avenues that the industry had, because golf is not only a sport, but it's also a very large industry. There's a wide range of opportunities in the golf business that the Academy can open your eyes to. We have a million different directions you can go in the sport, and the Golf Academy offers you an opportunity to go in any one of those directions.
Can we talk about 2009
Sure.
Masters? You came down the stretch, you had 2 strokes, you were on 17. Take me from 17 on.
Well, it was an amazing week. I was making every putt. I had the course charted out. I went in a week early, played practice rounds, had my little chart, how I was going to, I had course management set up of how I was going to play each hole, each day. I was going to hit this side of the fairway. I was going to play this part of the green, no matter where the pin was. It didn't matter. My quote for the week was conservatively aggressive, smart golf, and then my putter caught fire. I was making 20 footers with 6 foot of break. I made a bunch of those that week. It was crazy. And so,
when did you know that this one could be yours?
The 71st hole.
Oh, that's when it started to dawn on you.
It actually started on 16. I hit the prettiest 8-iron I've ever hit in my life. And when you hear the crowd, you get that roar, and then it goes into an eruption. You know you've hit it close. It was the prettiest shot, a little draw. I hit in there, pin back left, and it laid, it probably laid 4 inches from the hole, just short.
We were screaming and yelling and jumping up and down in the room that day.
It was probably the greatest shot of my life under the circumstances, but I almost wish now it didn't happen.
Because?
Because all of a sudden I went to the 17th tee box and I changed my whole thought process.
How did you change it?
I went from, conservatively aggressive, picking targets, trying to make a birdie, to my first thought was, all I got to do is make a par. That was it, and that was the worst thing I could have thought of.
What happened to you when you started thinking?
Because I played conservative.
Okay.
All right, I started, instead of being aggressive and really trying to hit the golf ball, I tried to steer it on the 71st hole. And you know what, it turned out okay. I blocked it, I was just trying to guide it, and it hit a pine tree and kicked it into the fairway. I've been hitting 9-iron in that hole all week. I had 195 yards left in the hole. I had to hit 6-iron. And I hit a pretty nice 6-iron. It hit just left of the flag, but from that distance, I didn't have the bite on it that I would have had with a 9-iron. It goes over the green. And from there, the world saw me fall apart. I had just a normal chip. I had only hit it 2 or 3 feet, and it would have, trundled right on down to the hole, and I sculled it.
People don't understand when they're watching the Masters tournament and some of the other tournaments throughout the year, that you don't have a green to hit to or even the pin to hit to. You really have about an 8x8 table
section
that you have to hit to, and instead of hitting from 150 yards, you're hitting from 180 yards.
Yeah, it was
190.
195 yard shot. So yeah, you're hitting to a little grid, a little quadrant. And so it went over the green, and then I sculled my pitch shot, which went off the green to the front. And then I putted it. I was so nervous. I putted it up to about 3 or 4 feet and made a nice 4-footer for bogey.
Yeah. Now you're standing on 18.
Still got a 1-shot lead.
You got a 1-shot lead.
All I got to do is make par.
What were you thinking? Did that rattle you?
No. But the way it turned out, it was identical to Valhalla. How the two scenarios were identical. At Valhalla, I had a 1-shot lead. There's a bunker out there, probably 312. I aimed at it all week, never could get to it. On the 72nd hole at Valhalla, I drove it right in the bunker, dead. The Augusta, the same thing. I've been aiming at those 2 bunkers all week with driver, hitting it as hard as I could hit it, could not reach them. Playoff, right in them. So it just tells you what adrenaline, anxiety, whatever, it's amazing what goes through your body at that time and how much harder and further you can hit it.
Would you hit a driver looking back on it again at 18?
Definitely. Driver's best club in my bag, by far. I've always been have the ability to get the driver in the fairway in general most times my whole career.
Now take me in from there, because there was the playoff and then
Correct.
Chad Campbell.
Right. Well, I drove it in the bunker on 18, the 72nd hole. Then I hit a fat iron shot left, chipped it long. Still had that 20-footer pin high where you've seen Mark O'Meara make it. You've seen a lot of, and I'm thinking, I've seen
Phil.
this putt made. Phil made it. I knew exactly the speed, and I hit just a lousy putt. I just kind of desailed a little bit, pulled it a little bit, missed it left. But so then we're in the playoff with Angel and Chad.
Now the time between then and the playoff, when you're actually teeing it up again, how long goes by? Because they go to commercial.
Not long. It didn't take us long.
10 minutes?
Whenever we signed our card, they put us in a golf cart, and back to the 18th tee we went.
Maybe about 10 minutes.
Right. I hit driver in the playoff and striked it. Perfect.
And what were you thinking during those 10 minutes before you got to the 18th green again?
Well, I had to regroup, and I was still thinking I still had a great shot at winning the Masters, even though I'd let it get away, and my heart had sunk a little bit, but I was still thinking, it's still possible.
So you striped that shot in the first playoff hole.
Yeah, just drilled it right down the middle. Angel had hit it in the woods right, and Chad had hit it down the middle. And Angel was the first to hit. He hit a tree, immediately ricochets back off into the fairway. Chad blocked his out to the right. I blocked mine out to the right. Boy, was I nervous on that second shot. It is so funny how nervous I was. But then I hit a chip that laid on the lip. If it would have rolled 2 ball revolutions, it would have went in. It laid just short. I thought I'd won the Masters when I saw the chip on the green and rolling. So then I made par, and Hale had to make about a 6-footer down the hill to make par. He made it. Chad chipped it a little long and missed it coming back, so Chad was out.
So you and Angel go to the second playoff hole.
10th hole,
What happened?
Number 10. Both drove it right down the middle, and the 10th hole is probably 480, and it doglegs right, and it's downhill, and there's a crown in the middle of that fairway as you're going to the green. The green goes like this, and I was on the top of the crown, but my feet were quite a bit below the golf ball. So I was kind of, as most people know, when you're below the golf ball like that, you've got a tendency to pull it. And sure enough, I had a 5-iron, I had 2-something to the hole. I was aiming out right at that bunker, and that ball started curving left, and it just kept on going, and I missed the green left. Deep trouble over there. Then I ended up chipping it long, and Angel hit it a beautiful iron in the middle of the green. All I had to do was 2-putt, and
And
it
you
was
knew
over.
it then.
Yeah, it was over.
You knew it then.
Yeah.
So you told me, I think after that, a year or so later, you said, Ray, I had one arm in the green jacket.
I did.
And I'll remember it and live with it the rest of my life.
That's right, but it was okay. I handled that a lot better than I did the PGA when I lost the PGA.
What happened at the PGA? Did you carry that around with you a while?
Yeah, it took me about 2 or 3 years to get through that process.
Really?
I couldn't shake it. I couldn't get rid of it. There's the Valhalla, Kentucky, my home state, a major, something I wanted really badly.
You hear them talking about it on TV when a guy loses one, and they say he's scarred for life. That one you'll never forget.
Probably. Well, I'll never forget the Masters either. I don't know if it scars you. It's something you'll never get back.
Preview.
I spent 4 years total in the Marine Corps. 2 of those years were involved in the Middle East. I had a strong level of desire to become involved in the golf industry. I just did not know how to get there. As a veteran, I knew that it was a perfect fit for me. I've gotten so much out of the school. One thing in particular is the science behind the golf swing. I've learned so much about just the overall art of the swing. The best thing about the Golf Academy of America was all the opportunities for jobs within the industry. I'm graduating very soon. I have a job that's waiting for me. Life couldn't get any better.
Now, when I saw you here last year, Kenny, you were tired. It was cold. It was windy. You were here last year.
Coldest day I remember in Phoenix.
And yeah, it was cold. And the whole week was kind of not the greatest week we've had. And you said, man, I'm tired. I don't know what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
So what did Kenny Perry turn around and do after the Waste Management Phoenix Open last year? He goes to the Champions Tour and becomes the Rookie of the Year.
But I only played 10 events last year.
How do you,
well, there was only 2 of us vying for it was me or John Houston.
Well, well,
so,
that's okay.
We were the only 2 that turned 50 at that time that were going for the award. And John won also. He had just as much right to win that award that I did. And I think I made just a few $1,000s more than he did. And that's how come I ended up getting it. So,
do you like playing on the Champions Tour?
Love the Champions Tour. I feel like I'm lost in the 80s when I play the Champions Tour. I really do. I feel because all the guys I looked up to and who made me who I was, I wanted to compete against, I wanted to be like, I tried to beat. They're playing. You got Hale Irwin, you got Fuzzy, you got Crenshaw, you got Lanny, Curtis Strange. I mean, it's the who's who of golf is on the Champions Tour. Phenomenal guys, phenomenal players.
Started out as an exhibition tour, really turned into just an absolute gunslinging, gunfight week in, week out with gobs of money over the years. The guys making way more on Champions than they did on the PGA.
Exactly.
It's a heck of a deal, isn't it?
And you know what? What people don't realize, how well those guys play and how low the scores are for 3 days. And I was shell shocked. They were beating me by 20 strokes. I was like 3 under at the Woodlands at Houston where we played, PGA events there many times. Fred Couple shot like 21 under. And I was like, how do you do that? And I was like, and for 2 weeks, they beat the pants off me. And I was like, uh-oh, I got to reevaluate this. Something's, if I'm going to compete on this tour, I've got to shoot 6 under a day. And it's like, it's like an old hot rod. You got to put your foot on the gas pedal, and you cannot ever let off.
But how do they shoot 6 under a day and shoot those kind of scores on the Champions Tour when just a year or two earlier they couldn't do it on the PGA Tour? What's the difference?
I have no idea. We do not.
It's the same course,
We still
isn't it?
play the course at 7,000 yards long. It's not like we're playing it at 6,700 or 6,800. It's the same golf course, and we played the same tees that I played there. When I played the Woodlands forever, and I was numb. Right? I was like, my first thought was, I'm going back to the PGA Tour. I'm not playing out here.
It's easier on the PGA.
I agree. It was a lot easier to make the cut out here and to to be competitive out there. If you don't, if you're not running and gunslinging and you're not, they're hitting driver on holes I would never even dream of hitting drivers on. They're tight and they're just bombing away, and they're making birdies all over the lot. It's exciting. It's fun to watch. It's fun to be around. And
but you're toggling back and forth. How much PGA golf are you going to play? How much Champions?
I'm about 50-50. I'm half and half. I still got a lot of great, Memorial, Colonial, Bay Hill. There's so many great tournaments here. The
Masters,
Phoenix,
U.S. Open. What about all those?
Well, I'm not in any of those this year.
Well, you could be. You going to try?
Well, I could.
US?
Yeah, I could. And we'll see when the time comes where my golf game's at.
Does Kenny Perry want to keep playing competitive golf, or do you want to do something different?
Great question. Sandy, my wife tells me, if you quit golf, what are you going to do? That's
the broadcasting booth?
Never.
Because?
Never.
Why?
I'm not going to be a Johnny Miller. I could not be mean when one of my buddies hits a bad shot. I just couldn't do it. I just couldn't be.
Well, you don't have to be mean. So Johnny Miller's mean?
No, he's.
He does come up with some lines.
Yes, he does. He's truthful. I mean, and we've all been there and done that. Everybody's felt that. I watched Cal Stanley last week. My heart broke for that kid. He didn't hit a poor shot. And next thing you know, he loses the golf tournament.
Is that one 3 strokes standing on 18? Is that one that's going to scar him for a long time?
He's going to hurt, yes, definitely. He will. It's going to take him. I hope it doesn't take him. I hope he gets right back on the horse this week and plays great. And I hope he's not really thinking too much about that. I saw him in the locker room, and I told him, I said, kid, you did nothing wrong there. You played the hole like you're supposed to. You hit a great third shot. And I was watching other guys hit that shot, and they all stopped and stayed on that plateau. You're sucked back off into the water. I said, it just wasn't meant to be. And, I told him, I said, I blew the Masters. So, I mean, you blew San Diego. So it happens. And then, that's golf. And I told him, I said, it's either going to make you tougher, or you need to learn from it and be tougher. And, good things are going to happen.
Do the young players come to you that are here on tour? Do they come out to you on the practice range and in the clubhouse? And do they say, Kenny, help me?
Well, I
something?
play a lot of practice rounds. I play with Scott Stallings. I play with Blake Adams. I play with Josh Teeter. We just finished a practice round today. I play with a lot of the young kids. I really love hanging out with them. They're so alive and they're not beat down by all the golf that, my 25 years I've been out here, I've played, I've seen it all, felt it all, experienced it all. They're still high on life. They're high on golf, high on life.
Because it did beat you down there for a while.
Oh yeah, golf will, because you think about it. There's only one winner, and I've been fortunate enough to win 14 times, and that's still just a marginal career. You see a lot of guys only win 1, 2, or 3 times. You very seldom win in this game. You're always losing. You're always a loser out here.
What are they going to say about Kenny Perry?
Shoot.
What do you want them to think and say about you when you're done? How do you want to be remembered?
I just hope they remember me as the guy who helped a lot of people. That he was a devout Christian man. He lived his life right. He had a great family, and that family is continuing on with his legacy. To me, it's pretty simple. I have a simple life. I don't really need anything. I've been blessed with so much stuff. To me now, it's trying to get God's message across and trying to take as many people to heaven with me that I can get. I'm not about winning golf tournaments anymore. To me, it's about sharing the message.
We want to go with you, Kenny.
You got it, brother.
Thank you for being with me on
got
Match
it.
Play.
You got it. Thank you.
Wow. Fantastic.